Going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904. If you want to get all technical on me, it is 5:30 on the dot on the East Coast, 2:30 West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time. So, of course, it's time for the flagship show today here at Rotogrinders called Grinderslive. Joining me today, the top pro creator in all of DFS. It's Mr. Tuttle. What's up, dude?
Not much. Happy to do a show with you. I usually don't get to get on, this early. But I have seen some kids baseball to go to later tonight, so I asked if I could do the early show, and here we are.
Did you your kids the entire team? Did you field all nine?
I was telling Devin before you jumped on. It's really annoying because I have 3 kids that are eligible ages to play baseball this year, and we got to miss it all last year because of COVID and stuff. And now it's just an absolute mess, and there's something every night basically.
Yeah. Do you enjoy the kids' baseball games? Is it fun? I used to watch my nephews when I was living in Charleston, and it's something. There's some sort of action going on.
They're young enough where it is fun still. We're not yet to like the super competitive stages, which I think would be fun if they're good, which I'm not sure exactly if that's going to happen with my kids. But right now it's still fun because it's like, hey, you hit the ball, good job. We can cheer for that type of thing.
There's always that one, dad in the crowd that's just way too into it and like he cares way too much about balls and strikes. And it's just like, they're like 7, man, relax. Let them have a good time. You're stepping down, I guess, from premium today. Is that what's going on? I know premium show today is looks like Kevin Roth.
Cardi has it now.
Oh, did you guys flip flop? Is that what happened?
Yep. I flip flopped with Cardi.
Okay. Yeah. So if you guys are premium members, you got Derek Cardi, Grant Neefer, who was at the Rockies game last night, allegedly. That's what he told me. I saw him on Zoom after 15 alcoholic beverages, and we played trivia. For real, that's a true story. Maybe we can get into that another time. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth, also, if there's any weather issues out there lurking, he will give you the most up-to-date update. Last I saw, there's really nothing to be too concerned with, but, weather, it can change. It can be fickle depending on where you're at. If you're not premium members, why not? Get yourself $10 off first month. You can get a la carte just one sport, just baseball. If that's all you want to just grind baseball. If you want to get all the sports with the esports and NHL, football around the corner, college and NFL, everything with the exception of NASCAR, you can get that as well too. $10 off either way. And hey, since I mentioned trivia, sure, why not? On Fridays, Crunch Time not free today. Kevin Roth, Cardi, Neefer, those guys are going to be premium product. But on Fridays, it's the Big Brain deal. Free Crunch Time. On Fridays with Big Brain. Take you guys out to lock. After lock, they play Big Brain. If you're not aware of Big Brain, HQ trivia merging with the world of DFS. You can play cash tournaments. You can play cash contests, tournaments, GPP style as far as how smart you are in a very specific category. Tuttle, I'm not sure if you have played just yet. I have not. I'm not in the correct state.
I have.
Oh, what's your takeaway? Did you actually play live on Friday night with everybody watching?
Yes. I've done it a couple times. I'm not very smart when it comes to trivia. I used to love it, and the chat last week helped me remember there used to be a restaurant in the Midwest called Damon's, and they had trivia exactly like this. and I would go there every year for my birthday party because I love the trivia so much, or for my birthday because I love the trivia so much. And even though I'm not very knowledgeable with trivia yet, it's still extremely fun.
Yeah, I mean, you get a certain number of points if you get it in a certain amount of time, and then like I assume just like at Damon's, they would say, well, it's not this, and like you can kind of rule out one of the three, and like it's definitely not for righties. I don't know, and then you can just kind of figure it out by process elimination, and like the longer you take, the more points you happen to lose. The topics, if you're gonna pick one of these topics, pizza, salt and pepper, which is very specific, salt and pepper. I wonder if Spinderella gets a shout out there. Game of Thrones, the LA Dodgers, and snack foods. Which one of those five do you think you'd excel in most likely amongst those categories? Currently in the lobby right now at Big Brain.
What was the first one?
Pizza. Like, how do you get pizza?
Yeah, I feel like that would be the easiest. Game of Thrones would be, I think, most fun for me. Yeah, but try to refresh some knowledge on that.
Yeah, there's so many names in Game of Thrones. I just know, like, well, that's the big guy, and that's the old guy, and that's the scary guy. What's his name? Daenerys Targaryen. She's got like 1,000 names. But did you dislike the ending to Game of Thrones when you look at everybody else on the internet? Were you mad?
Yeah, kind of. It was a little underwhelming.
All right. I don't know why I'm stalling as far as the slate. We're going to talk, people are kind of shuffling on through, obviously. What up, YouTube? Feel free to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Do appreciate that. Fire off some questions as well. Tell us what category you would thrive in trivia. Sure, why not? We can entertain that. Because Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, he's going to be compiling those questions. And, obviously let us know if it's for cash, if it's for tournaments, what site you have me playing on. Last 15 minutes of the show, give or take, depending on how our conversation's going. He's going to jump on and fire up those questions and ask questions on behalf of the chat. Overarching questions, too. Those are appreciated, like, stack this, how you like your 4-4 lineups tonight. You like 5-3, if you're on DK, favorite one-offs, yada, yada. And again, we're not going to sit here and talk about every single player. It's just not how it goes down, and it's not particularly helpful. So if we don't talk about the player you're looking at, feel free to ask about him. All right, tonight. So there's really nobody sexy pitching. Well, I guess kind of sort of somewhat sexy is the pitcher for Toronto, but the asking price got a big bump as far as Alek Manoah. We'll talk about him in a second, but in the expert survey today, I compared Walker Buehler to vanilla ice cream. You order vanilla ice cream, you know what you're going to get. There's no ceiling on vanilla ice cream. It's perfectly fine. It hits the spot. It's a nice, palate cleanser. You get yourself some Walker Buehler. You're going to get 6 innings. You're going to get a strikeout an inning, more or less. Decent shot at the W, especially against C. Martin the other end. But he's not going to break the slate. It doesn't have the upside of cookies and cream or butter pecan. But he's not going to hurt you. Vanilla's not going to hurt you. It's fine.
Butter pecan? Come on, man. The upside of butter pecan. You had me until there.
I learned there was a Superman ice cream last night. Somebody was telling me about that. Is that? Yeah. I think that's big in the Midwest, possibly.
Yeah, it's more like of the candy type variety.
Yeah, and they don't pay royalties. They change it just enough, I think, where they don't pay the good people of Marvel or Disney, whoever would be collecting on that. But that's what Walker Buehler is, right? But he's like the safest, best play, and he's not hard to pay for. The salaries, they make it very easy to get him if you want him, and he's the safest play, and he's probably not going to strike out 10, but he's gone 6 every single game this year. I expect him to go 6 again. He'll get that quality start there in FanDuel and put up his 40 points, whatever it may be, but probably not 50, probably no less than 30. And he's Walker Buehler.
Yeah, honestly, he's the guy you love to fade when he's going to be high owned, right?
Yes.
It's highly unlikely he kills you. Like, yes, he 20 DraftKings points is probably going to happen out of him, but it's not going to range too far in either direction from that. So if you can find that elsewhere and find a different construction that everybody else is on, I mean, that's kind of what you like to do when there's somebody with him who doesn't have a ton of upside on a continual basis.
I'm taking a peek here at the chat. I normally don't get to watch it a ton because I'm doing other things and Devin's all over it. But apparently, according to the chat, butter pecan is old man ice cream. Is that true?
Yeah,
it's a pecan or pecan. Which do we go with?
You can go with either one.
Versatile.
I'm more the pecan type myself.
And then Kirkwood's in the chat says vanilla ice cream is delicious. Like, first of all, as a base, sure, but you have to add something to it, right? I think. What do I know? Cheese is good. Dave Potts, I'm sure he's got some hot takes as far as ice cream. We'll ask about him tomorrow or something like that. Next time we have him on, he's always talking about his ice cream. But then if you say, I'm not going to play Walker Buehler because he doesn't have this massive upside, guess what? Those other ice cream players they're not available on the slate tonight.
Yep.
What else is there that has this massive upside? With the exception, and Vandal, and they're not screwing around with Alek Manoah. He's the most expensive pitcher over there, and he was phenomenal his first start. He looks legit. He's a big-time prospect. He's facing the Marlins. They're out of Dunedin. They're in Buffalo, which is supposedly a little bit more neutral than everything's more neutral than the park in Dunedin, obviously. And the Marlins stink. They added a DH, but whoever's DHing for him is not good because it's the Marlins and not a particularly deep team. And he did throw they let him go 88 pitches, which I was kind of impressed with. They let him go 6 innings. He was super clean, against the Yankees. Struck a bunch of dudes out. Didn't get in trouble at all. Couple hits, couple walks. I think he's the logical SP2 on DK. We'll talk about Manaea in a second, obviously. On FanDuel, I think it makes for an interesting conversation, and no other reason, just give yourself a different shuffle. And he's more expensive than Buehler. But again, you have the money. The salaries on FanDuel are just ridiculous. We'll talk about it. It's kind of sort of somewhat of a pick 'em. But give me the pivots away from Buehler.
Yeah, so I think Manoah is going to be very high owned on DraftKings because of the price tag. I think he's just as an attractive option as Montgomery and Manaea, and he's significantly less cheaper than both on DraftKings. So I do think he'll be the chalky SP2, but he is the guy that has the upside on the slate. He's gotten a little bit of the hate. I brought the YouTube chat up. He's gotten some hate in the YouTube chat, but obviously he's a prospect. We don't know a ton about him now or yet, but he's an elite prospect, has elite strikeout upside, has a crazy good matchup. Like any pitcher against Miami, we consider on a nightly basis. And now we're talking about a guy with good pedigree, good strikeout upside. He's, to me, very, very clearly the highest upside pitcher on the slate. So he is the guy that I like. Even at high ownership, I do like him. Like I saw the question, hey, why not Shane McClanahan as a pivot off of?
Well, pitch count.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yes, he could strike out a decent amount of Yankees, but he's maxed out at maybe 70 pitches this season. It's mostly been in that 60 pitch range. When you're only pitching 60 pitches in a game, you just have very little upside, and the downside is much more significant. So McClanahan, if he was fully stretched and if we had any indication that they were going to go with him, in the 80 and 90 pitch range, I'd be all about it. I would definitely look at him in tournaments on this slate, but he just is unlikely to get that. So McClanahan is someone personally I don't have any exposure to, and Manoah is the guy, and then Manaea is the pivot off of Buehler for me in the high price. So I like pairing Manaea with Manoah. You say Manaea, I say Manoah. I like pairing those two together in tournaments. Again, it's not that you're going to be pivoting off of a whole lot of chalk. It's just those are the guys that I think actually have some decent upside. And below that, there's not a whole lot of other attractive options.
Yeah, McClanahan last time out, 5 innings, 63 pitches, 3 hits, no walks, 6 Ks, never in trouble. In the American League, wasn't that he was pinch hit for or anything. It's just 63 pitches. It's the Rays. We know that overall organizational philosophy. It's 67 before that, 75 before that, 80 before that, 63 before that. And that Yankee lineup, there are some Ks there, obviously. It's just, I don't know how many he can go 5 and strike out 9. That's something he can do. We can give him that. Sure. Why not? The Ks are kind of sort of backloaded here as far as this lineup for New York today. We don't talk about this very often, but apparently Aaron Judge is playing center field today. I'm not sure if you saw that, but
yep.
Which I guess is interesting and probably not a plus if you're rostering Montgomery. I don't know.
Probably not.
It might affect one play. Who knows? That could be the make or break play. Urshela 27% as far as striking out. Andujar. Wait, it's Andujar. I think that's what they pronounced that, right? 31%. Frazier at 34%. Brett Gardner's got to get DFA'd, right? That has to happen any day now. He has been one of the worst players in all of baseball. Didn't crack the lineup lefty on lefty today, but I don't know how that guy is still lacing it up. It's over for Brett Gardner. It was a good run. Good for him. I'm not out here trying to, take somebody's job away, but he'll be fine. But it's got to stop. Sell me on Manaea. It's just, he's pretty good, and the matchup is good against Seattle. It's terrible. They lost Lewis as well. An already weak lineup has gotten weaker. Manaea, but it's full price. 9.6 is not cheap, but again, you'll have the money.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. It's largely matchup driven. Like Kyle Lewis, the absence of Kyle Lewis is big too. Brings another left-handed bat into their lineup most likely, so that's big. Lewis strikes out a lot as is, so I don't know how much it totally affects strikeout potential from Manaea there, but another left-handed bat, worse left-handed bat with Taylor Trammell, and so yeah, Manaea is the guy for me, is the pivot off. Like again, he's a guy that it's going to be mid to high 20 strikeout rate, not going to be the ace of an ace, but pitch count's good. We know he has a bit of a leash. We know the matchup's good, and that's basically the sell on him.
Yeah, I mean, I pulled up the K rates in the season. Manoah doesn't really count, 31.8% in 6 innings, but I think that's legit. I think that's real. Yep. McClanahan at 30%. Again, we talk about he can only go maybe 5 innings or so. Then Pavetta, who I don't think people are really on, is at 26%. Walker Buehler at 25, just steady Eddie, Mr. Vanilla. Montgomery at 24.7. There are some Ks there. Manaea at 24.2. Pablo Lopez is good, and he's facing some good hitters, and I don't really know what to do with that. I think I'm just mostly ignoring both sides, and hopefully it's like one of those 4-3 games, and Lopez is okay, and maybe somebody hits a solo homer, Vladdy gets his homer or something like that, but nobody goes nuts. The stack doesn't go nuts. Do you have thoughts as far as Lopez, that Toronto game in general?
On this slate, I think it's fine to play Lopez. Like, he's going to be – we know he is a talented pitcher. We know he's not going to have any ownership just because of the matchup. Like, if you just want to bet on talent to win out, he would be the one guy that I'd be okay with in tournaments. I, again, personally do not have exposure to him, but I think he makes sense. If somebody played him, I wouldn't just open up their lineup and laugh at it and say, okay, I understand what they were going for here.
I get it, and I'm sure I don't have the ownership stuff right in front of me, but I'm sure you're looking at it, and I would imagine it's less than 10% on Lopez.
Yeah, we have him currently under 1%, or right at the 1% range.
Yeah. And then if you really want to open things up and you want to save some salary, it's the Uber driver, right? It's Dobnak. I guess that's what we're doing against Baltimore, and we're not happy about it. Not a lot of Ks, but he has the ability to get a bunch of ground balls and go 6 or 7 innings and survive. And Baltimore's not terribly imposing, and eke his way to 14 fantasy points on DK as an SB2, and that opens up the bats. And again, not a comfortable roster, but if it makes everything else work, I guess that there's my rousing. And he's got the ridiculous, Cheese talked about it, his mustache is, you could make that tunnel. You ever considered making the Dobnak?
I'm not good at shaving the mustache. I can't make it look good. I can't groom it. I'm not very good at grooming it.
Go to the barber, with one with the pole, the official pole. Yeah. Just say, I think you probably have to get more details and say, just give me the Dobnak. He's probably not popular enough nationally. Maybe in Minnesota that would work, but not in, I believe you're in Wisconsin. But is it gives you a different build, and the problem is, he's got no upside, and he's the one guy everybody's landing on if you're going to go cheap. Just by default, people aren't going to roster Matt Harvey. They're not going to roster Lyles or Senzatella or C-Mart. I don't think they're playing Flexen. Maybe Smiley. I don't really think that's the correct move, but it's Dobnak by default if you want to save salary.
Yeah, I think we will see a little Dobnak and a little Flexen, and they're kind of the same people in the sense that not a lot of strikeouts, a better real-life pitcher than fantasy pitcher. Again, on this slate specifically, I don't think it's bad. You just hope every pitcher comes in with that 20-point range on DraftKings, and if that happens and you're playing a low-price guy and he gets you 12, 15, perfectly fine with it. So I think it's okay on this slate. If we had some aces that we had to fade to make it happen, I wouldn't be okay with it. But Dobnak's fine, Flexen's fine. They're very, very unexciting options. I'm not in love with them by any stretch of the imagination, but they make sense on this slate.
Framber Valdez made his first start of the season last time out, went 4 innings. His swinging strike rate is alarmingly low. It's a small sample, so don't get too alarmed, but 5.6% is super low. He did strike out 22% of guys, but that to me looks really bad. And also, how far is he really going to go? They're not going to push him in his second start. They usually have 15 pitches or so or something like that. I think he threw around 65 or 70. And, you don't really want to pick on Boston. He threw 72. So in theory, I guess he can throw high 80s if things are going really well. But you got to thread the needle with Frambar, and I'm just not rostering him. And it's just that's kind of sort of where we're at. That's why we're landing at the guys we're talking about. That's why we're talking about playing good old reliable Walker Buehler, Manaea, Montgomery. You can get some Ks there against Tampa, and the rookie, even though he's a rookie, only has one start, but there's legit pedigree, and it's a good matchup and a nice price on DK. I think it was 4K the first game, and it was
and
off.
They got rained out.
Yeah. So yeah, give us the summary as far as pitchers. Like, there's not a lot of decision points, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, Buehler is the core tag guy by Cheese, and I get it. I think it makes sense for cash games. He's the quote-unquote safest option of the bunch. Completely okay with that. On FanDuel specifically, Manoah I like as a pivot off of Buehler. I think he's got the highest upside on the slate. He should be lower owned there because he's the highest priced pitcher. So I like him in tournaments there. I think Manoah is going to be the chalk SP2 on DraftKings. I think rightfully so. I'm fine eating that chalk. In terms of other pivots or guys in my player pool, Sean Manaea and Jordan Montgomery are both guys with pretty good strikeout matchups. Would not be surprised if either of those two ended up being the highest scoring pitchers on the slate. So I think both are fine alternatives.
I see Devin in the chat talking about me calling Dobnak the Uber driver. He was an Uber driver. I wasn't making a joke, and I'm not, but that was his job. Like, he was an Uber driver, and then he became a major league pitcher. That's the same guy, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm
I
almost
thought you made that up.
No, he was a legit. I don't think he's still Uber. He actually got signed. I think they gave him like a nice little contract too. He was, good for him. Congratulations, but not great in the DFS world, obviously. All right, so let's talk some sticks. Let's talk the bats. Before we go position by position, we'll go around the horn. We'll give our favorite, our favorite stacks. And again, the chat, fire off some questions, whoever we don't talk about, or you want us to go into more details, yada, yada, or this guy or that guy. We're happy to answer those. Devin, producer Devin, I assume they just heard them. That wasn't just in my ear. The people heard it. The people heard you as well, right, Devin? Yeah. And they're saying that Strasburg had a strained neck. Come on. Wait, hold on. What? I'm reading the chat right now. Strasburg went in the IL, which is like no surprise if you saw his velocity dipping the last couple of games. And I don't think it was because of the line drive. He was just, his arm was shot before that game even started. Only 3.8 star Uber driver, according to the chat, for it's the mustache. People were they were lowering down for some reason. I don't right now. Give me your assessment as far as how we're attacking the slate from a bat perspective. I think it's pretty obvious, like what the good stuff is as opposed to the bad stuff. Of course, goofy things happen in baseball. But what's your approach before we go around the horn?
So the games in Atlanta and Colorado are pure chalk. Anything off of that is going to be lower owned. I think it's good chalk in general, and I think spreading out exposure if you have multiple lineups is the right way to do it. So Texas, Colorado, Washington, Atlanta, all good chalk. Atlanta and Texas, I think, will be probably the two higher owned of the bunch. Although this Texas lineup comes out, and sometimes you just forget how bad a lineup is.
It's terrible
when they're hitting Brock Holt 6. Solak's not in the lineup, which is kind of annoying. So like, it's not a good lineup, but the matchup, it's such a good matchup against Sensatella. Even bad hitters can find success. And the other thing to remember here is in Coors, it's not just home runs we're looking for. Like extra base hits become things, and so you don't have to exactly have power to get the park upgrade here that we're looking for at Coors. But yeah, those are the two chalk games. Anything off of that, again, I think is going to be lower owned. And I do think there are two teams that are actually good teams that are going to be lower owned because they're not in these two places and they don't have quite as good of matchups. The Dodgers and Houston, very good lineups, and I think you're going to get ownership discounts on both those teams. So I think those are the teams to look to for stacking if you're looking for leverage. If you don't want to completely eat the chalk, those would be the teams I would go to. Pavetta's a fly ball pitcher that Houston's going up against. Obviously a ton of power in their lineup. I like them. Dodgers, kind of the same thing. Carlos Martinez had a good outing, frustratingly good outing.
Yes.
Last game when we all decided we wanted to stack the Diamondbacks, and it did not go very well.
He had a no-hitter going into like the 6th or 7th inning.
Yep. It was so frustrating.
Yes.
So frustrating. But anyways, like the Dodgers, obviously extremely good lineup, ton of power. Martinez, even with that game, if you look at his season-long numbers, just so bad in terms of actually striking hitters out. He's allowing a ton of contact, doesn't have much control. So Dodgers and Houston would be the two teams that I would go to. Like you can get really good hitters at discounted ownership just because of the context of the slate.
Martinez has one skill is he can get ground balls in the season. It's at 50%. So he does have that working for him. But like you said, the strikeouts, lowest in the slate, 13.6%. I think it actually went up his last start. Yep. It's and like, what happened to this guy? He was like on the verge of being like almost a stud, almost a number one, and he always showed like flashes, but it's just not happening, I don't think. And of course, the Dodgers, I know it's not the best Dodgers lineup, and they're still kind of hurt to some extent. They're getting healthier. Bellinger is back, even though Bellinger's not done Bellinger things just yet. Also, I think worth mentioning, and it is weird, like last night, the Coors Field didn't Coors Field, but it was actually two good pitchers, Dunning and Marquez. Tonight, that is not the case with Senzatella and Lyles taking the bump. The Rockies Senzatella's backed up by an all right-handed bullpen. Everybody in that bullpen is right-handed, which I think is worth, unless they called somebody up in the last half hour that I've missed, like all 9 or 10 dudes, whatever it is, they're all righties. So Calhoun, he didn't play. He got taken out last night. I guess it was a double swap. I'm not really sure exactly what happened. I don't think he got pinch hit for, but you're going to have the platoon advantage of the lefties the entire game. Calhoun, Joey Gallo. This is the night it finally happens for Gallo. Like we've been saying this, at least I've been saying, oh, get Gallo. You got to play Gallo. And it feels like he's basically has like Mike Zunino numbers, if not worse this season. But it feels like this is the night for Joey Gallo. And DK still hasn't fully reflected the prices as far as core stuff. FanDuel has that they did to some extent. It jumped up some of the players, but yeah, some of the core's prices are just kind of weird, and that's why the slate is sort of a pick 'em. And if it's not the core's guys, you can find cheapies elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of annoying. Like even FanDuel, when they priced it up, their site in general is just so soft on pricing that like it's still very easy to fit people in. But on DraftKings, it's a little bit annoying when you get Nate Lowe like 3,700 or Yordan Alvarez even 3,900.
Yeah,
like, there's plenty of cheap options. We might get a 2K catcher in Minnesota against Baltimore with Ben Rortvedt, and like if we get him, you can pretty much do what you want with the rest of your lineup.
Yeah. Also, why do we not have a Minnesota lineup out? That game does not start. It starts like in an hour and 15 minutes. Like we've seen COVID issues for some teams. Like that's kind of what's going. Or maybe is there somebody that may or may not go on the DL or the IL?
Yeah, I think they have to make. I don't know if they've made technically a roster move with Garver yet.
Oh yeah, he's not. Yeah.
Yeah. If they haven't made if they haven't made a roster move technically yet, then I think they can't release the lineup or whatever. Blah blah blah. So they might be waiting to make an official roster move. Would be possible.
Yeah, I was watching that last night. He took a foul tip off the groin. Let's keep it clean here. And normally they just kind of shake it off and like in 2 minutes, like there's nothing you can do. The trainer comes out, and like what's the trainer going to do? He's just gonna, you buy yourself some time, and eventually it sort of wears off. It's still going to hurt, but it just wasn't happening. He was down, and it didn't recover. And apparently, I guess he had some surgery on it too. So wish him well. You can't wish that on anybody. Your worst enemy. That's got to be brutal. And I'd imagine he's not going to draw the start today. Speaking of that, catchers, it's terrible. It's gross. And that's why we want the 2K cheapie or Williams Estudio. If he cracks the lineup, sure, why not? He's going to make contact. He's not going to walk. He's not going to strike out.
La Tortuga.
Yeah, the tortoise. Yeah.
Love that dude.
Yeah, I always think of Breaking Bad because that was a Danny Trejo's character for, well, spoiler alert, kids, for like an episode. And that's about it. He was not long for that show. So like Minnesota catcher. Otherwise, what else? There's no Will Smith. He's not playing baseball tonight. Dom Nunez is batting 8th at home. I guess you can play him. Sure, why not? But he's fully priced. Heim, he's not good, but he's cheap and he's in Coors Field. It's hard to get excited about any of these catchers.
Yeah, cheap in Coors Field is probably going to get you a lot of ownership, I think, on the slate tonight. Yan Gomes, I could see getting ownership if he's in the lineup. The guy that won't be very owned that I like at his price tag, 3,200, Francisco Mejia. This guy's actually a good hitter. I forget the splits on if he's better against lefties or righty, but this is a guy that is actually a good hitter at a hitter's park, at a home run park. So if you're looking for cheap power, Mejia would be the guy that I go to. Like he's probably the lowest priced guy on DraftKings that is actually talented from at the plate. So I would be interested in him as well.
205 ISO versus lefties the last 2 seasons, striking out 23.4%, WOBA 315. So I'm not sure what it is versus righties, but that's what it is versus lefties. Taking a peek there as far as the plate IQ. According to the chat, Jeffers got called up, which that's another one of the Twins catchers. So
yes, yep.
Maybe he gets the start. We shall see. Stay tuned on that. But clock is ticking, and I would imagine soon enough we will get a Minnesota lineup. Not much else to say as far as catchers. Talk about first base.
Yeah, the first base here again, Lowe is too cheap on DraftKings. I think he'll be the stone chalk in Coors against Sensatella. Depending on where Miguel Sano ends up in the lineup, if he's back batting top 5, he'll be a popular option. He's good as well. Freddy Freeman, I think, is a strong tournament option. He'll probably see lower ownership just because of he's not going to go low owned. He'll grab some ownership, but he'll be lower than he should be just because of the initial lefty-lefty matchup. But this is more of a bullpen game for Atlanta or for Washington. So Freeman, certainly a good option as well.
No one up there for Washington either, which again, that's peculiar.
Yeah, they're actually, when I said the comment, I think I actually read a tweet that I think it was Washington is the one that's waiting for some sort of transaction to happen. And I mistakenly said that was going to be the Minnesota Twins, but I think Washington is waiting for some sort of transaction.
Okay, yeah, I want to see both those lineups. But and Freeman, I don't know if you watched that game at all last night, but he had some bad luck. He was hitting the ball hard, just at the wrong people in the wrong spot, but he was on it. It was frustrating for him. It was frustrating for those that rostered him for sure. And he's got a history against Leicester. It's not very good, but it's also BBP, whatever. And yeah, Leicester, those numbers are from like 8 years ago too, probably when Leicester was good. He's no longer good. Yep. All right. And yeah, on DK, I'd imagine that they didn't bump Lowe up enough. Like Lowe's just way too cheap over there, 3.7K. And he's probably going to be one of the guys that kind of make stuff work. You mentioned Sano. Depending on where he is in the order, basically predicates which inning he's going to strike out in, right? Is that how that works? Either you want him to strike out in the first inning or the second inning or the third inning.
Pretty much, yeah.
He's so
the Twin. So I do and am curious. I guess we didn't even talk that much about the Twins in the stack section, but like, will recent frustrations of them being a terrible stack and excellent spots the last 2 days, will that lead to lower ownership at all?
Matt Harvey, no. Matt Harvey supersedes that. And Harvey might not pitch that long, not just because he might get pummeled, which he may, but I think he's only on 3 days rest, and they've called some dude up named Zach Lowther, who got shellacked his only MLB start this year or appearance this year. It might have came out of the pen, but lefty for what it's worth. But like, I don't think Harvey goes beyond like 4 or 5 innings, even if he's pitching fairly well. But people are going to see Harvey and they're going to play Minnesota. And also like Nelson Cruz is 4.6 on DK and he's 3.2 on FanDuel. I know it's not a lefty, but you get the lefty on layaway and like, come on, what are we talking about? And like Larnack, if he draws the start, is 2.4K on DK.
Washington lineup just came out, by the way.
Anything interesting?
Gomes will be chalk. He's batting 5th. So we got your chalk catcher on DraftKings right there.
Yeah, which might get replaced by the Minnesota, depending on what they do there. Anything else that's worth saying at first base, or shall we jump to second?
We could jump.
What do you got for me?
Yeah, so second is a little bit more interesting. This is where I was hoping we would get Solak, and Coors didn't happen. So it kind of just depends. Like McMahon is the guy if you have the money for it, but you might not have the money for it. I do prefer spending elsewhere than paying up for McMahon. But from a projection standpoint, he's going to look the best. Ozzy Albies is a fine option. He's a little bit more affordable. He's only 4,600 on DraftKings. I think he's a strong option. Muncy's the guy that I think might get glossed over here. Again, we mentioned Carlos Martinez is a guy that we want to pick on. And I don't think many people are going to be doing it tonight. So Muncy's, I think, an elite GPP option. We have him at just 4% ownership here on the slate.
He's kind of pricey, but like I think that price is justified. The matchup is good too, and I like him. I like him a good bit in tournaments as well. Trying to think who else is worth a look there. You mentioned Albies, switch hitter. I prefer him on the right hand side historically. You could swipe a bag on Lester. That's something he's capable of doing, I suppose. That top half of that Atlanta lineup, it seems to be pretty well suited there. It dips off pretty quickly with Adrianza and Heredia and Kevon Smith, but the first 5 are pretty interesting. I know it's the kind of the chalky 5, obviously, but anything else that's second that's worth a say? I guess if Jorge Polanco draws the leadoff spot, on the road, legit shot of those 5 ABs.
Nobody ever really cheap on FanDuel too.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like on DK, he's too much. On FanDuel, he's too cheap. And
yeah, that's been the story with him. Yeah, Harrison's got a good spot. He's cheap on DraftKings. I could see him getting some ownership, but I think that's about it.
Knock out third base.
Yes, let me move to third here. Donaldson's too cheap. Sano you can play here if you really want. Austin Riley, I think, is too cheap. And he's interesting. Like, I'm looking at the bat projections. He's interestingly not showing up as that great of an option on DraftKings. And I think he's 4,100. I think he's a very good option.
I agree. He's fine.
Yeah, we have him at 15% ownership. So he's not going to fly under the radar. But he's somebody that stood out. Third base, second base, we didn't mention if you really want to go cheap. Some of these Tampa Bay options as one-offs, I think, are fine. If you're looking for like a 5-1-1 type build or even a 4-3-1 type build, they're very valuable in terms of just salary relief because they're very cheap. Again, it's a good hitter's park. Montgomery's like a fine pitcher, but I'm also okay taking one-off hitters against him. So that's like a Yandy Diaz, who's only 3,200. Brousseau is batting fourth, and he's 2,500. So if you just want to punt the position, either second base or third base with Brousseau, I think you can do that for real cheap.
Yandy Diaz is incapable of hitting fly balls. And he looks like a guy that should smash the baseball like 500 feet, and he just doesn't do it. It's very frustrating. But yeah, I was looking at his fly ball stuff today, actually, and I think it's like 22% fly balls. Well, let's see. We haven't no play like it. Last two seasons, Yandy Diaz fly ball 22.8%. Like, come on, what are we doing? Does nobody know about launch angle? Tampa's supposed to take the smartest analytical team. Somebody let Yandy know about launch. I'm sure he knows about it. I think it's actually improved. It was even worse last year. But and also they double swap guys in and out. Tampa's got like 13 players, and like basically it's only like 4 dudes that are basically locked into their spot. Everybody else might, they can always get the hook depending on the game situation, which is kind of frustrating. But then at the same time, if they homer in the first inning and the first at bat, who cares? We're golden. Jump back to shortstop, Trey Turner. I think probably a better play, an easier play on FanDuel where he's 3.7, which is a much more accommodating price. With 5.5 on DK. But he checks every single box. He's on the road, has power, has speed, very good shot for those 5 ABs. Not a tough matchup necessarily. And also, well, depending on where you're shopping, I guess there's price points where there's guys you can play at shortstop that are kind of sort of somewhat interesting. Gavin Lux we'll talk about, but I just like Trey Turner, and I just play him more than everybody. Typically speaking, he's one of those guys I just lean on, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. I haven't built anything yet. But in my head, he's one of my core pieces. But obviously, salary is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's easily the top option if you can afford it. You offhand mentioned Lux. He's cheap, batting 6. I also do think I mentioned one-offs for Tampa Bay. I think one-offs for Yankees are fine too. In the middle, their infielders are pretty cheap. Gleyber Torres is only 4K. Ursula is like 3.9 when we skipped over him on third base. So Yankees as one-offs I think are fine. Dansby Swanson's pretty cheap. He's 4,100. Carlos Correa now batting second. Mentioned I like Houston bats is a stack. So lots of good options here. So I wouldn't get like Trey's the cash game guy. Trey's the guy you can fit in cash games, but I do think there are a ton of viable pivots here at this position.
All right, going to knock out the outfielders in a second. And again, fire off some questions there in chat. Devin's going to join the show in a minute. Whatever we haven't talked about, whatever y'all want us to expand upon, we're happy to do so. Be sure to specify as far as cash, tournaments, yada, yada. Did want to mention, lineup HQ I have pulled up as far as the pitchers. There are some extreme umpires, just throwing it out there for the people, how much you care. Manoah, the rookie, does have an extreme hitters umpire, as does Pablo Lopez on the other side. Dobnak, also an extreme hitters umpire, which of course that means the Minnesota Bats have an extreme hitters umpire, as does Matt Harvey. Extreme pitchers umpire, Walker Buehler, as well as Drew Smiley, as well as Seamart, as well as Lester. The outfield feels pretty strong, and there's a lot of good prices in the outfield. I'm going to have a hard time figuring out like my 3 core guys in my main lineups. And I'm not somebody that just goes 5-3 or 4-4. I don't necessarily do that. I understand why people do that, and I usually go like 3-3-2 or something like that. But yeah, are you with me? Do you feel like the outfield's pretty strong, especially when you consider some of the prices that are really appealing?
It's easily the hardest position to narrow down.
Yeah,
because it's the deepest by far. And like One thing about that too is if you're looking at stacking the Rangers, easily their best three of their best options are take up all the outfield spots. So that would be one way to get unique is to not play, Willie Calhoun or even Gallo. But yeah, I mean, it's very tough. Calhoun, I mentioned him. Gallo, both are options. Jordan Alvarez is a good option around. Acuna, I think he's still too cheap for what he is.
Love him.
He's too cheap. Like he's only. I opened up DraftKings. I saw the matchup, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna be like 6,200 or whatever. $500 too cheap, I think. Those are the main guys that stood out, but there are. I'm trying to think. I know I'm missing somebody. Who am I missing?
Well, Tucker's too cheap. Jordan Alvarez is too cheap. Larnach, if he cracks the lineup for Minnesota, specifically in DK is 2.4K. Bellinger, if you want to play some ups, he's looked like garbage so far. But I think he's fine. And Seamart's a guy that's probably not going to blow the ball past him. So, and maybe just people are going to be waiting for something to happen first. We talked about Nelson Cruz at 3.2K on FanDuel and 4.5 or 4.6 on DK, which is kind of goofy. Kirilov, for sure, he's got to be in play as well too. And we didn't talk about Stanton and Judge, and I'm hopeful that they don't go nuts because I don't think I'm playing them. But sure, of course they can.
Stanton's cheap too.
Yeah, like I don't think I'm getting there, but McClanahan seems like the guy that is just going to give him those 3 breakers or 3 sweepers, and Stanton just can't help himself. He's got to swing through it every single time. I don't know. Or he just cranks, when he connects, it's just beautiful. It's like, how is this guy not have like 700 home runs every single season? It's just incredible. Anything else of note? Anything else that worth kind of featuring? We didn't really talk about the Toronto-Miami Sticks. That game is just sort of like it's happening, and hopefully it's like 4 or 5, or actually less if you're playing Manoah for the Marlins side. And Houston, Boston, kind of neglecting the Boston side, but I understand why. Go ahead.
I think you'll see people talk about trying to get leverage off of some of the chalkier pitchers. So, playing Miami stack or whatever, just to get off to get leverage off Manoah. I don't think it's overly necessary. Like if I were to do that, I would do Cardinals before the Marlins because they actually have some power in their lineup. So I think ownership is going to be so concentrated in Atlanta and Colorado, or if you take hitters that are not, or stacks that are not them or Minnesota, you're fine right there. You don't have to look for extra leverage by stacking against a chalky pitcher.
Do you know where you're at as far as your favorite stacks right now?
I'm still trying to find. I'm running a single lineup on DraftKings, and I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure it out. Again, if I don't go chalk, which I don't think I'm going to, it's going to be Houston or the Dodgers, and I'm trying to figure it out from there.
Are you like me? Like Houston's at home and Tucker's batting 6th, and that just
always kills me. It annoys me. It's a mental block for me because in the grand scheme of things, it's not the big. It's a very, very minute detail, and if they're going to go off, hopefully it's just before the 9th inning, and it doesn't matter.
We saw it last night, though, where I think Alvarez and Tucker both lost their last at bat because they won the game and they didn't get a 9th inning, and they would have been up next. And like those, and of course, again, maybe they can get it done in 4 at bats, and who needs the 5th one? Or maybe they get 5 at bats and they, because they put up 9 runs, or maybe they're losing and they get their 5 at bats that way. But yeah, it's one of my hangups because I look at it like that Tucker price is too cheap, that Alvarez price is too cheap. But if you put it in the mindset of usage, it's like, well, if this guy's getting 5, this guy's getting 4, that's a 20% increase in usage. I know it's kind of goofy, like, well, a strikeout or a pop-up, and it's probably not the best way to look at it, but I had that same sort of hang up. Anyways, let's bring Devin on. Hey, Devin, happy belated birthday. How was your birthday celebration? Good times or what?
Yeah, it was good. I did some pre-gaming on Monday, really, because I knew I had to work on Tuesday, the actual day. So, yeah.
What involves the pre-gaming?
Oh, it just basically what you would do on the birthday, but on the day before.
You were thirsty?
A little thirsty and a little tired the next day, but duty calls.
30? 30?
30, the big 3-0.
30?
Yep.
Oh man,
that's old, dude.
Yeah.
It's all downhill.
Oh my gosh.
It's all downhill.
They're starting my coffin in the next room. So
the down payment on it.
Well, we have a lot of questions and not a lot of time because Dean was a little verbose today.
Jeez, well, Dean.
Never. Who am I?
Shocker.
Who would have expected? Verbose. Put that in the bingo card.
Thanks. We'll start with this one from Eric. General Q for Tuttle. Would you worry about ownership at all in a 200-person single entry tournament?
No.
All right, we'll just bounce back and forth for these. Dean, Eric wants to know, why do I want to stack the Marlins today? What a fitting question to give to you.
I think if that's the Eric I'm thinking of, he wants to play the Marlins every single day. And it's like, the Marlins are so pesky. It's like, well, they're like the worst team. If they're pesky, how pesky is everybody else? They're distinctly peskier than the Marlins. But yeah, whatever. You could stack the Marlins. I'm not.
Whatever. We touched on this next one about Alec. Jacob wants to know, or I guess these next few were just comments on Dean's revelation about butter pecan ice cream. Jacob says butter pecan is old man ice cream. Otaku says Dean is an old man, confirmed. Derek says Dean keeps butterscotch candies on him.
It's not.
I thought that was pretty good. Kirk came in with his suggestion for ice cream: black raspberry with chocolate sprinkles, which that sounded decadent. I don't know if I'd go for the raspberry, but you know.
Too specific.
Shannon wants to know, why not Shane McClanahan? Did we talk about him a little bit?
We did. We were just saying the pitch count is the concern. We like him, but like even if he's pitching well, he might only throw 70 pitches, which is kind of a problem.
All right. Tuttle, Eric wants to know, DK tournaments, what's your thoughts on flexing?
On this slate, it's fine.
And we'll stick with you for this
rousing
next one.
endorsement.
It's fine. Which
it's not going to. He's not an upside play by any stretch. But again, if you just hope and pray that all the pitchers stay around 20 or below, go for it.
Which brings me to the next question, and we'll stick with you, Tuttle, for this one. Frederick wants to know, any love for Oakland stacks versus flexing? From a mad pitcher, but
yeah, he again, Flexen's a better real life pitcher, and he's pretty good at limiting contact. But yeah, I'm okay with Oakland stacks too.
Oakland lineup just dropped: Canna, Lowry, Olson, Moreland, Murphy, Piscotty, Chapman down to 7, Kemp, and Elvis.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at Flexen's fly ball. Yeah, it's pretty neutral. Yes, he doesn't. He allows a lot of contact, a lot of balls in play, so I'm fine stacking against him.
And you said you liked Houston as a stack, right?
Yes.
All right. Ryan wants to know, Dean, can you play two chalky stacks with Manoah on FanDuel, or is that not enough leverage?
I mean,
I think that price tag is going to keep people away on FanDuel.
I feel like it's not that hard to get Bueller. What do we have as far as ownership? You looking at a total? Because I imagine Bueller is going to be distinctly higher. As far as, we're talking about a difference of $1,200. It isn't that much.
We have 29 versus 6 in favor of Bueller currently.
Yeah, if Manaea is 6%, then whatever, you're fine.
Sorry,
right?
that was Manoah, not Manaea.
Oh.
Yeah, Manoah. I said the ownership for Manoah.
Yeah, I think
Manaea we have higher owned than Bueller.
Yeah, Manoah or Manaea is 33.
Oprah, Uma, Upa. Oh, yeah, I remember that old Letterman bit. Yeah, so Manoah is projected to be 6% owned on FanDuel. Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty slim.
7%.
Yeah,
I just refreshed.
That still seems a little bit low, but everybody's just going to land on Bueller because he's cheaper and they recognize his name, and he's safe. He's vanilla ice cream.
So
it's not gonna
enough leverage, you think, on FanDuel?
I think you're fine. Yeah, I think you can play 2 chalk stacks with Manoah.
All right. Alan wants to know, DK tournaments, Tuttle, are you playing any Smiley? Did well versus Washington a while back.
I do not have any Smiley, no.
All right, Dean. Eric wants to know, is Meadows going to always hit a home run, and why is no one playing Meadows and the Tampa Bay Rays?
Yeah, I mean, they're not playing Meadows because of left on left. Like, that just scares people. As far as the splits for Montgomery, I think they're not that drastic. I'm going to pull it back to the last year. Montgomery splits K percentage versus lefties is actually 18% as opposed to 11%. 165 ISO versus lefties, 122 versus righties. I feel like, is he kind of sort of a neutral pitcher? What do we have here in the bat? Because I know Cardi kind of puts a label on him as well. I'm saying words just to buy time. Yeah, he's a neutral pitcher as far as splits, and we know about the ports there in Yankee Stadium. Meadows is absolutely in play, and nobody's going to play him. And he's safe. He's not going to leave the game. He's one of those Rays that will play the entire game. He's got plenty of power.
Speaking of safe, would you consider Manaea safe versus Seattle? And that's Manaea, not Manoah.
Yeah, I would rank him as second safest behind Bueller.
All right. Eric wants to know thoughts on Valdez versus Boston.
I wasn't impressed with his first start. I don't think he goes beyond 6. He can thread that needle in theory, I suppose, but I don't really want to pick on Boston, and very few swinging strikes his first time out. I think he's a decent pitcher, but I don't see any ceiling. You're just looking for survival, and I like the other guys better as far as survival. So it's a no-go for me. Tuttle?
All right. Tuttle, any other thoughts?
That was great.
All right.
No.
Tuttle, this one's from Ravens, DK Cash, Turner and Gallo, or Acuna and Swanson?
Ooh, that's all good stuff.
Turner and Gallo or what?
Acuna and Swanson.
Gosh. Yeah, I'll take the first one, but it's all good stuff.
All right, Dean. Jay asks, DK single entry, would you play the chalkier Atlanta stack or go to Houston?
Are we sure Atlanta's going to be chalky? Like, Freddie Freeman's not going to be chalk.
Well, Freddie's in like the 19-17% range, right? But everything else is 20 or more, right? All the big
I'm refreshing Slate IQ here. Let me see what we have real quick. Total ownership. Atlanta was the highest.
Oh wow, that's surprising.
Apparently our sorting function isn't working. The ringing endorsement.
Oh no.
Yes, Atlanta's the
Minnesota
highest
lineup too. I think Minnesota might change things depending on what they throw out there.
We have Atlanta, then Texas, and then Minnesota, which makes sense to me.
I think the bat was liking Minnesota as a stack. Out of the top 50, it was 40 or so. Let's see. Next question. We got that one. Any love for Tampa Bay? We got that one as well. Outside of a twin stack, who's another team stack? I think we touched on that one as well. So, Dean, why don't you go ahead and take us home?
So, Ref Schneider was just placed on the 7-day concussion IL. I imagine that's what was going on at Minnesota.
So that's what they were waiting on, yeah.
Which I presume means that we're going to get a lineup coming out shortly. And you know what's going to help you out with that lineup? It's going to be crunch time. If you guys are paying members, you got one Grant Neefer, you got Derek Carty, CEO of the Bat, Roth talking about any sort of weather that may be lurking out there.
Definitely going to get a flex from Roth today. Anytime.
Oh, he loves flexing, doesn't he?
Flexing, yeah, anytime.
He's one of those guys I wish was better because he's got a cool name, but flexing's not. Yeah, he's not really flexing, unfortunately. So go ahead and check that out if you guys are premium members. If you're not, again, $10 off your first month. Devin will go ahead, drop that link in chat. You can get it a la carte, just baseball or all the sports with the exception of NASCAR. Crunch Time, we talk about it. It'll be free on Friday along with Big Brain. They'll be sponsoring it. If you guys play over there, your first $50, get a $50 automatic deposit bonus. No promo code necessary. With that, he was Tuttle. He was Devin. A happy belated birthday to Devin. Wish Devin a happy birthday. Also, you know what Devin wished for his birthday? He wanted a like and a subscribe.
There you go. Smash that like button. It was my birthday.
I said I would never stoop.
Do you have a problem? It was my birthday.
I'm groveling and I'm stooping. I said I would never do it, but here I am. Do like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Much appreciate that. That was Devin. That was Tuttle. That was baseball. I was Dean. We're out of here. Holler!